mean, Bill Clinton said one true thing. We're leaving here with a load off our shoulders. Of course, the load is Joe Biden. I mean, he said it out loud. And that to me is the principal issue of this convention. A whole bunch of people came here dreading it, or they would have been dreading it, and now they're leaving thinking they're in the game.
That's Scott Jennings giving a much-needed reality check to CNN's Anderson Cooper in a panel of political shills who were essentially gushing over every speech at the DNC. Welcome to Nurk News, I'm Nurkish, and Democrats may still be riding high on the manufactured enthusiasm and joy of the DNC, but many on the right are seeing through the smoke and mirrors and correctly pointing out that liberals are due for one massive political hangover. Here's Republican Scott Jennings raining on the parade of bought and paid for hacks like Van Jones and David Axelrod.
In all these speeches, as good as they were, is that she's in the White House right now. Democrats have controlled the White House for 12 of the last 16 years. And for all of the talk about division and the problems in the country and people are hurting, Democrats have mostly controlled this country. Trump had it for 4. The Obamas and Biden had it for the rest of the time. And somehow, it's still all Trump's fault, and somehow she hasn't been at the center of it. So to me, that's still the glaring hole in this campaign that hasn't yet been solved at the convention. How do you explain all of the problems that will be solved by the person who is currently in there for the last 3.5 years, who is supposed to already be working on solving it? But something he does that is so weird to me, the constant attacks on J.D. Vance for going to Yale. I don't understand this. I've heard Walz proclaim to be a small-town guy who wants everybody to get an education and succeed, and he spends a fair amount of time attacking J.D. Vance, who grew up poor and got worked hard to get an education and rise above his station in life, and he has used it as a punchline on the campaign trail. And I don't understand what he's trying to communicate to every small-town poor kid out there, saying, if you choose to work hard and go to an Ivy League school, you somehow abandon your hometown. I don't get it. I think the Democrats want people to vote for her based on a vibe or an attitude and not really think all that hard about what it would mean to implement the kind of policy agenda that she has mostly stood for in her career. And Anderson, there may not be a debate about who can be more joyful, but there has to be a debate about who can get the country back on the right track when 3/4 think it's off on the wrong one.
The last point Jennings just made is particularly important here. Harris has not seriously spoken to the media or explained a legitimate policy prescription since they kicked Biden to the curb, which may fly with Democrats, who seem more concerned with winning and turning this into a superficial popularity contest than they are addressing hard truths or dealing with reality. Speaking of which, here's some liberal women on CNN pretending to be journalists and praising Kamala Harris for avoiding them like the plague.
Then you hear the criticism, she has to do more interviews, she has to talk about policy. Interesting from insiders you're speaking to, they're sort of like, no, absolutely not. Haven't needed to do it so far. Yeah. Why start now?
And that's exactly it. They're concerned about her doing that could potentially trip her up and give Trump some ammunition. In fact, a lot of those Democrats I spoke to today said avoid those policy prescriptions.
I haven't heard from many voters looking for white papers and policy papers. What they want to hear is what her vision is for this country.
The American people don't vote on policy prescriptions.
I actually think the way the American people think about this choice is less about the minutia of policy and more about the direction of the country, number one. And secondly, about the person. Character, it does matter.
And Jerry Connolly, the congressman from Virginia there, I asked him more about this. He said, remember what Elizabeth Warren did when she ran back in 2020? She had a white paper for every policy position under the sun. And what happened? She collapsed in the primary. So there's a belief that perhaps you put more ideas on paper, that's a bad idea. But the question is, voters want to see some of those ideas.
Right. Maybe, but if you go with the vibes, it's a vibes election.
Right, that's right.
Nothing highlights the problems our country is facing like a sour-faced 40-year-old liberal woman telling you this is a vibes election while pretending to be an objective journalist. I mean, for crying out loud, North Korea propagandists are more professional than this. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts that these are going to be the same people that inevitably try to spin Harris's pathetic debate performance and interviews into some sort of Pravda-level nonsense about victimization or cherry-picked highlight reels of sassy girl boss moments to distract you from what really took place. But let me know what you think. Can Democrats win on manufactured vibes and joy alone? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!